Hi, everyone. We're so glad you joined us on this Easter Monday evening, taking a break from your holidays to join us in this great discussion. So, without further ado and introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
All right, welcome everyone. I hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. Welcome to this session titled Then All of Us Must Fear for Our Lives. Thank you so much for your engagement, all of you who have been coming so far. If we have anyone new, how this works is I give a quick overview teaching portion for about 15 to 20 minutes, and this is to supplement and complement the readings, and then we will delve into the readings themselves and have a discussion on the two texts that were assigned by Blessed Clemens von Galen and Father Alfred Delp, two resistance figures. All right, with that, I'm excited to share these two historical friends of mine who I have really befriended over the past several years. And yes, I refer to them really as historical friends. The first is Clemens von Galen from this noble German family. You can tell it was a noble family because his full name is Clemens August Joseph Emmanuel Pius Antonius Hubertus Maria Count von Galen. So he was the Bishop of Munster, and he was the first bishop to be appointed upon the rise of the Nazis. And so Hitler and Bishop von Galen overlapped with their very diverging forms of leadership in Germany. And what makes him such a remarkable figure is that he was so thoroughly German, and as a friend of mine likes to say, he epitomizes the patriotism of one who loved his government, loved his country more than his government did. And so that's really the essence of patriotism, when we love our country more than our government of the day might happen to. So he grew up in this aristocratic family and lots of connections and ties and a lot of piety. He said that we are brutally Catholic in our family. He said we may not be the smartest, we may not be the most good looking, but we are brutally Catholic. This was the manner in which they spoke kind of among the family. There's this wonderful book about von Galen titled The Lion of Munster, and it's by Father Daniel Utrecht of the Oratory in Toronto. And so, if you're interested in a really fascinating biography of this bishop who was known as the lion who roared against the Nazis, you can check out that title. Now, when he became the Bishop of Munster in Germany, the very first thing that he did was establish a church with, well, the church was already there, but establish a chapel of perpetual adoration in this church. So there would be adoration of the Blessed Sacrament continually in this church starting in the early 30s. And so there's still a sign there that mentions that it's a place for prayer and for adoration. And this is really where his story of leadership begins. Another thing about von Galen is that he had a lot of devotion to Mary, and so he would make these walking pilgrimages on Saturdays to a site commemorating Our Lady of Sorrows. This is going to be a very Catholic session. No getting around that with these two figures, but I know that many of you are very much up for it. His Episcopal motto was this: neither praise nor fear, nec laudibus nec timore. Neither praise nor fear would rouse him or would move him. And this is how he explained his motto to his to the people of the diocese. He said, "This shall be my motto and shall be a signpost for all of us. Neither the praises of men nor fear of men shall move us. Rather, our glory will be to promote the praise of God, and our steadfast effort will be to walk always in a holy fear of God." So there I am with the rector of the cathedral in Munster, who brought me to the Marian pilgrimage site that von Galen used to go on Saturdays. And now there's that plaque with his motto outside of that site. Here's the church, that Marian site I mentioned, with this depiction of Our Lady of Sorrows. And so it was really from his piety, it was really from all of this devotion that his conscience was roused throughout his life. So he has this quotation that says, "I would like to lead each one of you without exception to Mary beneath the cross. Like the beloved mother, let us willingly accept the sorrows that God has sent us as our share in the atonement for the disobedience to God's will, as our share in the atonement for sin, which is the source of all the sorrows that come upon the children of Adam. Yes, come with me to Mary, the sorrowful mother beneath the cross. Contemplate her sorrow in the face of the deadly peril of her divine Son who hangs on that cross, dying." So for him, he was saturated and permeated with the faith in a way that is very capable of being deciphered in his actions in resistance to Nazism. It's really cool, I think, as with all of these sessions, that these are places that you can go to that connect with every instance of his devotion and with all of the decision points in his conscience. These are real sites of pilgrimage that continue to be visited today. And what we read for this session is his homily that he gave, one of three homilies he courageously gave denouncing the Nazi euthanasia program. Now, some people will look at von Galen and criticize certain of his associations, a lack of speaking out about the situation of Jews and the Holocaust, and nobody will ever have been said to have done enough. Nevertheless, von Galen was extremely, extremely audacious to preach from this pulpit these homilies denouncing the Nazi euthanasia program during the war and as a bishop in Germany. He could have been sent to Dachau, as so many clergy were, but because of his popularity, because he was so well known and well regarded, they didn't dare touch him. And so his homilies became distributed. People copied them. They were also inspiring for the White Rose Resistance, and it's very neat. There even happened to be some lions, which were already there beneath the pulpit. And then in the Cathedral of Münster, there is this tomb. There's his tomb, and John Paul II prayed at that tomb in Münster. So it was very neat to take a walking pilgrimage and trace a lot of the steps from the place where he started to ensure that there would be a place of perpetual adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, to the site of Marian pilgrimage where he would contemplate Our Lady of Sorrows, to the pulpit where he would exercise his motto of neither praises nor fear will move us. And you just see all of this kind of coming together. Now, I mentioned in a previous session one of the Nazi euthanasia memorial sites I visited, Hartheim Castle, the castle in which 18,000 people were euthanized. And there really is just this singular figure of resistance in von Galen. He stands out and he's commemorated there. And you can see they have these blocks that students can kind of work with. And thank goodness for Google Translate for visitors like me. And you can see on the blocks at the memorial site, they have quotations from the very homily that you read, the very notable one in August 1941. And in addition to him being commemorated at the 6 Nazi euthanasia memorial site museums throughout Germany and Austria, he's also acknowledged. His efforts are kind of nodded to, even in Yad Vashem, the museum in Israel, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. Here it's describing how Hitler ordered the beginning of the euthanasia program in October 1939, the killing of persons with mental or physical disabilities who, according to Nazi ideology, were unworthy of living. In 6 facilities that were under medical supervision, some 70,000 Germans and Austrians, children and adults, were murdered in 1940 and 1941. The operation was officially terminated in August 1941 due to protests from the churches. So when the euthanasia institutions were closed, their medical and operational personnel unfortunately, were sent to Poland, where they engaged in establishing and commanding the extermination camps for Jews. So it really was significant what von Galen did. As a German, as a leader, he was able to exercise that kind of authority, and it did have some positive impact with respect to the euthanasia program being shut down, at least in part. Here we have some quotations from the homily during the Beatification Mass, just kind of reiterating the threads of his life that led to his decision points. Without any doubt, he was able to do what he did only thanks to a deep, but at the same time very simple spirituality founded both on the Eucharist and on devotion to the Mother of God. He countered the deafening martial music and the empty phrases blaring from the amplifiers of the speakers' platforms with the veneration of the Blessed Eucharist, the silence of contemplative adoration of the Lord who made himself bread. Before the Lord present in the sacrament of the Eucharistic bread, apparently defenseless, and thus not easy to recognize, he found the strength and nourishment that alone could permanently satisfy the human desire for life. Quite a remarkable witness. Now, a quick sketch of Father Alfred Delp, because we've read their texts, but we have not really been given a biographical sketch. So, to bring you along to some parts of Germany connected to Alfred Delp, here's a picture of him in the so-called People's Court. This was quite soon before he was executed. He was a Jesuit priest who was martyred on February 2nd, 1945. And you can see that there were others who were also being tried for their treasonous activity of opposing the Nazis, and he was murdered in a prison in Berlin. Here he is listed among many, many others at the memorial site at the prison where he was executed. Now, if you're looking for a biography of him, there's actually a Canadian author who's a good biographer, and she put together this book on titled "With Bound Hands: A Jesuit in Nazi Germany: The Life and Selected Prison Letters of Alfred Delp." And if you come to Canadian Physicians for Life bioethics symposia, you'll see such books on our tables where we give a wonderful assortment of books from which participants can choose from a wide variety of authors from whom we read excerpts. So this is that prison in which Father Delp was executed, and I was actually there just this past July, praying in the place where he was killed, and I brought this edition of his prison meditations. There's not a lot of description there. It's pretty bare, so you kind of have to know what you're looking for. And yeah, I think it could be a bit of a missed opportunity pedagogically to see an execution chamber without much direction for visitors. Not far from there, and there is actually still an active prison not far from the memorial site where all of these dissidents were executed. There are many churches in a row. There's Protestant churches, Catholic churches, different churches, all in a row, several of them. And in the Catholic Church, they have these relics, I guess, of Father Delp, and some very simple letters that he left, his last communications that were smuggled out of the cell. And one of Father Delp's most notable spiritual works has been published by Ignatius Press under the title Advent of the Heart. Father Delp had this reflection that all of life is Advent. We are really waiting for fulfillment, and in this kind of posture of expectation is the human heart for all of our life on earth. So I used to really wonder when I would walk around Germany ever since my first trip there as an 18-year-old, what was it like for people to be having masses going on in the churches while the Holocaust was going on? How did that even work? And there's this quotation from one of Father Delp's homilies, because he was actually preaching during the time, preaching as a priest in Germany, even in Munich, and even in 1943. And this was one of my favorite reflections. He says, despite this gloomy time, with a certitude about life and faith, we have set up the Advent wreath, even though no one knows how long it will stand or whether all four of its candles will be lit. The course of the liturgical year and the message continues, and we keep on doing things, but not for the sake of custom and tradition. It comes from a sense of certitude about things and mankind and revelation, things that are fixed and valid in and of themselves. These give mankind the right to light candles and to believe in the light and brightness of existence, not as if it were granted to us to erase all the gloominess. All the gloom must be gone through and endured. Yet, precisely for that reason, the lights of Advent should shine forth from within, as we let ourselves be led to the insight that man is not under the law of imprisonment, enslavement, or threats. So, that is everything that I have for a biographical sketch of these two remarkable, courageous men who were clearly animated by their Christian faith, not only conceptually and intellectually, though they were well formed in it, but really in this tactile way connected to liturgy, pilgrimage, the celebration of the sacraments, really lived to the core of their deepest being. And I think that's an interesting point about how do the activities, how do the ways we spend our time actually animate in one way or another our choices at crucial decision points of our lives. So, with that, we're going to look at two homilies, one by each of them. The most notable homily of Blessed Clemens von Galen, preached in St. Lambert's Church in in 19 in August of 1943, I think it was, and or was it 41? Might have been 41. And yeah, and then we're going to look at Father Delp's homily from 1943, preached during Advent. So, with that, I really look forward to your reflections on what stood out. They both have very different styles of reflection and lines of kind of even argumentation and different exposition of the readings as well. So, with that, yeah, we open it up for discussion. Come on, that was provoking.
Yeah, just wait. I'm just gonna spotlight you so that, yeah, there we go. Okay. So one thing that you mentioned and that I thought was really interesting from that last quote is like we're kind of going going about our everyday life. We've just gone through Easter. We've gone through our regular kind of Easter routine, Good Friday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday. And sometimes when you look out at the world, it seems very dark and maybe overwhelming about what you can do to make a change. But yet both these men kind of did what they did from within their vocation, right? Just from what was kind of their normal day-to-day lives, they spoke out from where they were at, and then they made a difference, even though, like even Bishop von Galen, it was like three sermons, right? Like it wasn't a huge amount of, at least what we have in terms of written documents. There wasn't like it wasn't like he was writing and publishing op-eds and putting out pamphlets and things like that. Like he said, three sermons, but they still had an impact.
Hmm.
So I just think it's interesting that we can all do a small thing and it can actually have a much larger effect than we contemplate or expect.
And they were so constrained. They probably looked at everything that they did as failures. I don't think that they regarded many of their actions as successful, even kind of, I can't imagine how they thought they were even being received. They were dangerous, they were risky, but I don't think they had the satisfaction of realizing their fruitfulness. If anything, they probably feared that these risks were going to come at consequences not even only to them, but possibly to others. And so were tormented by the consequences these risks could entail. I have a book as well. Here, I don't know if we'll be able to see it with how this is blurred, but this is the book. It's called From Euthanasia to Sobibor, and it tells the story of an SS officer who was involved in the euthanasia program, and then exactly as the Yad Vashem description reveals, he went on to be at Sobibor, one of the most notorious pure death camps and killing sites. And so it traces that trajectory. And to have the euthanasia program ended, but then know that everyone instead from the euthanasia killing sites ends up going and killing further in the east in concentration camps and death camps. And who knows just how much he was privy to. He actually died, von Galen died in 1945, a natural death, and very shortly after being named a cardinal.